I left without slamming the door. That was the only decision I made that felt deliberate in a house where everything had already been decided for me. "The greatest gift you can give your sister," my mother had said, smoothing the crease of her dress as if the sentence needed to look presentable, "is to remove yourself completely." Not shouted, not argued, just placed between us, like something obvious. My father didn't repeat it. He didn't need to. He stood near the window, arms folded, watching the street like there was something out there more reasonable than me. I remember thinking, not that they were wrong, but that they had already finished the conversation without me. So, I packed. Not in anger, not even quickly. I folded shirts I hadn't worn in months. Left behind the things that felt like they belonged to a version of me they had already erased. Took the keys from the hook by the door. No one stopped me. That part settled something more than anything, they said. At the threshold, I hesitated, but not because I wanted to stay. Just to understand that this was the last moment anything in that house could claim me. Then I closed the door. The next morning was quieter than I expected. No calls, no messages, not even the kind of silence that waits for something to break it. Just absence. Clean and uninterrupted. I made coffee in a kitchen that still smelled like someone else's cooking. Sat at a table that technically belonged to both of us. My name and my father's on the documents, but suddenly felt like it didn't belong to anyone. That's when it shifted, not emotionally, into accounts I hadn't touched in years, because I was never the one expected to manage anything. Passwords came back to me slowly, like old habits. The joint account appeared first, then the property file, then the documents tied to the apartment. For a long time, I had mistaken access for permission. That morning, I realized they weren't the same. I didn't rush clauses I had skimmed past before because they didn't feel like mine to use. They were. The process of freezing the account wasn't dramatic. No alarms, no warnings, just a sequence of confirmations, each one quieter than the last. At the end, a small notification, action completed. I stared at it longer than necessary. Not because it felt powerful, but because it felt final in a way their words hadn't. The apartment took longer. Calls, emails, verification, a meeting with a property agent who spoke to me like I was just another client, not someone stepping out of something personal. "What's your timeline?" he asked. "Soon," I said. He nodded, like that was enough. No one asked enough. That part mattered more than I expected. By the afternoon, things had begun moving in a direction that didn't include them. Offers came in. Numbers were discussed. I signed where I needed to sign. Each step felt less like retaliation and more like alignment. Like I was finally participating in decisions that had always involved me, but never included me. It wasn't satisfying. It was steady. That night, I sat on the floor. No furniture yet. Just a mattress I dragged in, and a half-open box beside me. The silence was still there, but it had changed shape. It didn't press in anymore. It just existed. I thought about my sister briefly, not her wedding. Not the celebration they were protecting. But the version of her that used to sit beside me on the stairs asking questions she never asked anymore. I wondered if she agreed with them, or if agreement had never been required. My phone buzzed once. A message from an unknown number. "We need to talk about the account." No greeting, no name. I looked at it for a long time, then placed the phone face down, not out of anger, just because I didn't feel the urgency anymore. The next day, the agent called to confirm the sale was moving forward. Paperwork was being processed. Funds would transfer once finalized. "Everything's in order," he said. I thanked him. That phrase, "in order," stayed with me for years. I had been the thing that disrupted their version of order. The one who didn't fit cleanly into expectations, who complicated plans just by existing slightly off from what was wanted. Now, things were in order. Without me, and I was fine. Not better, not healed, just no longer negotiating for space that had already been denied. A week passed before my father called. I let it ring, not to make a point, not to punish. I just didn't know what he could say that wouldn't belong to the same conversation they had already ended. Later, a message followed. There was a time I would have tried to understand what this meant. Tried to trace the exact moment I became the problem. Tried to adjust something in myself to make it easier for them. But the message didn't ask anything of me. It assumed. So, I left it there, unanswered. The apartment sold quietly. The funds transferred exactly as outlined. Notifications arrived, one after another, each confirming that something shared was no longer shared. No confrontation, no final argument, just a series of completions. Weeks later, I passed by the old street once. Not intentionally, just part of a longer route I hadn't taken before. The house looked the same. Curtains drawn. The window where my father used to stand reflecting the sky instead of anything inside. I didn't stop. There was nothing left there that required my presence. And for the first time, that didn't feel like loss. It felt like a boundary that no longer needed explaining.